Bibb was the first publisher of the Rolling Stone. He was an investment banker. He wrote a biography on Ted Turner, and he was a regular contributor to business news programming in the US. I had the privilege to interview him in 2012, together with a few other people who they were kind enough to give me their time for this little documentary that I made for my master's program. I studied journalism at Columbia, and I had the privilege to travel to the US just to meet these people. Unfortunately, they're all men, but Bibb played the biggest role in this interview. Ryan Osborn, he ended up being a VP for innovation at NBC News. Khris Loux, Mark Luckie, who became an important journalist at Twitter and later at Facebook. He became a whistleblower. Mike Proulx, Tom Tye, Bill Powers, Harris Faulkner, the Fox News anchor. I secretly recorded her at an event. And Natan Edelsburg. They're all in this documentary that you're about to watch. Natan became a very good friend. So luckily, out of all of these people, someone became a friend. But I just watched it, and I think in 2025, the kind of things that we discuss and the whole point of this documentary, I mean, this was the first time that I actually put an entire video project together, more than 5 minutes by myself. So the audio isn't great at some points. I think YouTube will probably penalize me for this because I use music that has copyright. So I'm not monetizing this video. But I think if you work in TV news in 2025, this is worth your time. It doesn't really offer a solution to what Bill Powers says. I think he's got very strong sound bites later on. We're like people like us working in TV news. We're trying to make it in a declining business. It was true in 2012. It's even more true today. I hope you enjoy it. And again, thanks to all of these people. And Ryan, I'm sorry that I'm finally making this video public. I know at the time he didn't want me to make his interview public. So here it is.
For the first time in 20 years, fewer Americans own a television.
Fewer and fewer people are watching television traditionally the way that we all grew up doing it.
1.5 million. According to Nielsen, that is the decline last year in the number of U.S. households paying for multi-channel TV service providers because you can watch. There we go. Because you can watch this stuff on your tablet. And you can watch it on your phone.
Look, I don't think it's any surprise that fewer people are watching TV.
1980. This year, the cable television industry will offer its subscribers more feature movies, more sports and entertainment alternatives than just a few short years ago anyone dreamed possible.
For the first time in history, you can see the news as it happens.
He used the traditional television model. Advertising was going to be the sole revenue source.
We intend to cover all the news all the time. And since we're going to be on for such a long period, continuously, we sign on June 1, and barring satellite problems in the future, we won't be signing off until the world ends. We'll be on, we will cover it live. You know, that will be our last event. We'll play the national anthem one time, and that's all.
Bibb chronicled the ambitious plans for creating CNN in a biography on Ted Turner.
CNN set the standard in the late 1970s, creating opportunity for viewers to watch news as it was happening. Previously, you'd had to see news after it happened and get it analyzed by some voiceover or an anchor sitting in a studio. When CNN first launched, you could see news happening. You could watch the rockets flying over Israel and Kuwait and lots of other real-time, real-life news as it's happening.
CNN dominated 24-hour news until 1996, when both NBC and News Corporation expanded their TV news divisions into standalone 24-hour news channels. What followed was a gradual growth in cable news audiences that jumped to record highs with 9/11.
The signature of Osama bin Laden.
Be careful of your baby. Oh my God. Look behind us. Please pan in this way, please. Be careful of your baby. This is it.
That's the building coming down.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. No.
September 11 created a need with people to know what was happening minute by minute while they were watching TV. Since then, however, cable news audiences have been flat, except for singular news events that drew great interest, like elections.
There's significantly fewer people watching television, whether it's entertainment or news, than ever before. It's been declining for the last 30 or 40 years. As I mentioned, every year total television viewership drops down a few notches. Ironically, the networks actually raise the cost of advertising with a smaller audience. Broadcast television and cable still can deliver critical mass eyeballs, millions more eyeballs than anybody on the internet can.
Let's look at the real business model of TV, the commercials.
Natan Edelsburg is a staff writer at Lost Remote, a website covering how social media platforms are affecting every aspect of TV.
All these commercials end up on YouTube more and more than ever before. You're seeing big celebrities, like the #1 commercial for the last month or so has been Pepsi's commercial. Why? It has One Direction in it.
Who?
From One Direction? Platinum album.
Dudes, won the Super Bowl.
Simple enough. Like, I don't know if it's going to help them sell Pepsi. That's not what I know. I don't even really care about that. You could ask that question about commercials 60 years ago. It's important, but I'm not interested in it yet. What I'm interested about is seeing how you get people to talk about these commercials. Because if you get people to talk about the brands in the same way, it could help, maybe put it on someone's mind a bit more.
The revolution begins here.
NBC wanted people to do just that, talk about their interest on the internet and put that on TV.
Because from now on, NBC News and Microsoft will revolutionize the way you get news.
MSNBC.
A 24-hour cable and internet news service. The future of news from the people you know.
We always just want to tell the best stories, have the best reporters with the most accurate information. And as long as we're doing that, whatever the platform may be, we're doing our jobs, and that's how we're going to differentiate ourselves.
That same year, the Fox News channel launched, and in its first year of business, it would beat MSNBC in viewership. 5 years later, Fox News would also surpass CNN's and become the market leader.
MSNBC, which was struggling, people forget it was a co-venture of NBC and Microsoft initially, and it was heavily oriented toward breaking information and news on technology more than politics, saw an opportunity to go to the opposite extreme and be the counterpoint to Fox by representing a liberal perspective and hiring liberal commentators, and that left CNN in the middle. And CNN basically contributed to its own shrinking franchise.
When the internet started gaining more popularity than TV, CNN didn't think it would ever threaten its shrinking franchise.
The future of television news starts right now. The Cable News Network.
Starting in 2008, CNN gave unprecedented unpaid airtime to social media companies that rivaled paid product placements.
Let's go first to the Twitter board if we possibly can.
Why don't you tell us what you think? Tweet us.
iReporters also weighing in this morning.
I'm on Twitter, finally.
You can weigh in at Facebook. There you go, facebook.com/JoshLoveCNN.
Yolanda Collier wrote me that on Facebook.
Now, the folks on MySpace, take a look at this.
Hey, tell me what you're doing this weekend. I want to hear from you.
A recent survey of brand integration in US television found that Twitter was the second most visible brand, a position it never paid for. The first, thanks to millions in TV advertising, was AT&T.
Speaking of Twitter...
But it was 2008, and nobody thought Twitter would ever pose a threat to TV.
The other thing that the TV networks really focus on, of course, it all comes down to money, right? It all comes down to ad revenue. Actually, a lot of people think that the TV networks only care about ratings. They do, but the reason why TV networks care about ratings is because the higher the ratings, the more that they can sell their ad inventory for. So really it comes down to money.
Broadcasters rely on a company called Nielsen to make money, and TV executives believed the Nielsen system was just too good to ever be disrupted by Twitter.
Currently, advertising buys are based on TV ratings measured only by Nielsen, and though the company measures online video viewing, those numbers aren't incorporated into its main ratings. This news comes as quarterly ad sales have fallen for media companies across the board, reflecting lower broadcast TV ratings and a shift of consumers online, where neither content creators nor advertisers are quite sure how to reach viewers or monetize them.
It's a system that advertisers and advertising agencies, both of whom pay for these services, have agreed to go with because it's a level playing field for all advertisers. It is an insanely inaccurate and unrepresentative reflection of viewership. First of all, let me explain the dirty little secret about Nielsen. Nielsen has been the accredited audience measuring company since almost the beginning of television in the United States in the early 1950s. Today and historically, Nielsen uses a database of fewer than 5,000 households out of 105 million households. It's not a statistically valid user base to give any kind of accurate rendering as to who is watching what on television. But advertisers and advertising agencies basically pay Nielsen to do this research. Both advertisers and agencies have agreed not to pay Nielsen too much. If Nielsen, for example, did a statistically valid sample, they'd have to have 5 million at least, instead of 5,000.
The monopoly that Nielsen has over TV and its inability to understand the power of social media on viewership was highlighted when Oprah Winfrey took to Twitter in an attempt to boost her network's viewership.
Winfrey sent what some are calling a desperate tweet. So here's what it said, quote, "Everyone who can, please turn on OWN," that's her network, Oprah Winfrey Network, "especially if you have a Nielsen box," end quote. But what may have seemed like a simple plea for viewers on a personal network may actually be a violation of policy. Nielsen, a company that keeps track of TV network viewer ratings, says it is currently reviewing the incident. Nielsen goes on to say, quote, "We take any violation of our policy seriously."
Oprah's request was partly successful and may even have boosted her ratings, something Nielsen was well aware of. It was already clear to everyone else, social media has come to disrupt the TV industry.
Social media, I mean, she's just taking advantage of the weapons she has.
At Lost Remote, like, one of the things we look at in particular is how social platforms are threatening this business model. But to be honest, like, I personally believe that it's less like threatening this business model, it's more forcing it to innovate and update. You know, I believe that the traditional business models are important and will always be there. It's kind of like, how do these new platforms make those proposition values even sexier?
You're watching News 4 at 4.
This year, you may finally get to communicate with friends halfway around the world about how there's nothing on TV.
Social television is expected to be one of the big tech trends for this year. Basically, it's you on your couch watching TV with friends whose couches could be half a world away. New smartphone apps and TV devices are being developed so people can chat about their shows with their friends as they watch. Can we do that anyway? I guess like
you can.
Yeah. Maybe not half a world away.
Now you have another way to do it.
We want to start a trending topic on Twitter, so use the hashtag.
2011 was the year social TV became mainstream. When the artist Beyonce showed off her baby bump on MTV's Video Music Awards, it led to the single biggest explosion of tweets ever. Social TV was the term used to describe how this TV moment was proof that the internet has in fact not killed TV, but rather made more people watch TV. Mike Proulx included the event in the first book about the phenomenon.
Many people are pointing to the fact that social media is bringing back viewers to watching television live again. And if you can get people tweeting about your shows and you can spawn trending topics on Twitter, that can cause and create buzz that can drive people to tune in. And there's a lot of research that's being done right now on the correlations between Twitter and actual TV ratings.
But many would argue the term social TV is nothing new.
TV has been social since TV existed. People were already talking about, their favorite show, the news that they're watching. They were calling grandma on the phone and saying, "Hey, did you hear about this?"
Television has always been social, and in many ways, now that we have these social media platforms that are starting to scale, we're starting to see conversations about our programs and the stories that we're telling resonate within these new places.
Broadcasters are desperate to try to tap into social media and to figure out how they can recoup some of the audiences that they've lost as core viewers. And it always amazes me when I'm watching a news program on broadcast television and they say, if you want more information, click on CBS.com and you get the background of this story. I want to know why they're not giving me the background, because if I go to my computer and click on to CBS.com, I'm not watching the television. So they're losing the audience, not gaining somebody through social media.
In 2011, CNN spent a meager amount on original programming compared to Fox News and MSNBC. It resulted in the channel's worst programming decisions ever and revealed its unhealthy obsession with social media.
Well, historically, journalists and news organizations are not known for experimenting. So we really live in an age now where journalists, newsrooms are really trying to try new things. They're trying the apps, they're trying the social networks, they're trying new technologies. And really what comes out of that, we don't know, but the culture of experimentation is really important, because if we don't try new things, then we'll never know what the outcome is.
As CNN was hemorrhaging money into its own attempts at bettering CNN.com, MSNBC acquired startup companies.
We actually, have a couple startups within NBC News Digital. We have a group that, oversees BreakingNews.com, which started as a Twitter handle that operates as a, totally independent startup within NBC News Digital. They're able to aggregate kind of any news or information that's seen in social media and share it across several different platforms. So, in many ways, our organization is trying to mimic a startup, and we know that we need to be scrappy. We know that, as we engage with audiences online, we need to be nimble and be able to move fast and iterate on ideas. And I think, there's a lot of value to be had in that kind of thinking.
Ryan Osborn started as a page on NBC's Today Show and worked his way up to become Vice President of Digital Innovation for all NBC News brands.
I think that, there's things that we do very well at NBC News. I think, we, do a tremendous job of sharing accurate, transparent journalism every day. There's things on the technology side that, startups are doing that are interesting. And I think, as those opportunities present themselves to collaborate, and if we can learn from a startup that's trying to solve a specific problem around, consumer behavior, I'm all for, working with those kinds of scrappier groups.
Acknowledging that partnerships with startup companies could be of more value than trying to take on the barrage of social media on their own, all three cable channels started looking for help from outside their own organizations.
Well, I'm excited to see what news organizations are doing in terms of forming partnerships. Now in newsrooms, especially major newsrooms, you have a person who's dedicated exclusively to forging partnerships with technology companies.
At Twitter, Mark Luckie assists in identifying such partnerships.
And you'll see that will be a pattern that will start to trickle down to your medium and lower newsrooms, because it's important to have a person thinking about how they can possibly use technology to better their news.
For Ryan Osborn and his team, and for CNN and Fox News, the biggest opportunity to catapult their ratings and thereby make more money was fast approaching. Everyone was working harder than ever, running off to prepare for the 2012 election.
I love lapel pins.
My dog's name is POTUS.
My must-have, this. The NBC Politics app for iPad.
Each of the 3 news channels came up with new ways to interact with viewers during the election.
Right now, election-related tweets are soaring. In fact,
Fox News didn't build anything extra. They only looked to Twitter.
Our history at Fox has been taking big events like election night and seeing not just how many people we could engage, but if we could prompt them to put different things that they're thinking at the time on our live chat, that becomes good material for us to use in our programming. It gets us, it's like a little focus group, it gets us to know where they are and what they're thinking. We'll tweet our handles together. People are very appreciative of breaking
Harris
it
Faulkner
down.
is one of a few anchors at the Fox News channel who actively uses Twitter on air.
So many reactions from you guys in the audience, and I have opened up twitter.com, my page, @HarrisFaulkner, to take questions live for Geraldo and really the rest of our panel, but so many for you, Geraldo.
But Fox News' use of Twitter was ineffective.
The networks co-opt Twitter by telling you on the air, oh, well, we had 22,000 tweets on that subject. Well, that doesn't really convey any value to you as the viewer. It doesn't make you happy to be watching that program or better informed. It's just the desperate reaching out of the broadcaster to try to bring social media into their universe, and it doesn't work.
What I don't like is that all of these companies seem to be taking social and trying to mimic a bit ratings and put a number. So we talk about numbers now, like this is how many social shares it got, or even Twitter does like tweets per minute. Who gives a shit? Like, so what if this show had a bazillion tweets per minute? Like a TV person, as a TV person, I would say like, no duh, we were broadcasting this on TV. It's the election. Like, it affects the whole country. Like, why are we surprised by this?
You could see they were kind of taking the superficial readout on social, the journalists were. Not all of them, but most of them. And so I think that was missed, and I think that inevitably is going to change, because whatever happens with business models in journalism, there are going to be people who realize that quality succeeds in the long run. That's why we have the New York Times today and the great network news journalists who are still doing terrific jobs, and that is going to happen again in whatever the future of journalism turns out to be. And I just know that this is going to be a part of it. This conversation is just too important and fast growing. If that many people want to participate this early in the social TV age, it's going to be just massive.
At least Fox News admit they don't know how social TV is changing their business.
That's one of the things at Fox that we're still struggling to do, and I wonder if other people are struggling to do this too. As we kind of get more comfortable with social TV, we've got to figure out a way to break it down, not just by topic, not just by gender, but by useful information for people. Because otherwise, as you heard Jack say, it's just this huge vat of garbage that everybody's kind of got to sift through.
What you have right now is more of a struggle between content creation and its marketing and social. The walls, if you will, or the structures or the norms or the protocols that would be in a newsroom or on set, right, and filming a movie are very well known, and they're sacrosanct, right? The world has now shifted to this 24/7 community mosh pit, and it is running through and over these structures. And what we're seeing now is this we're trying to find some normalcy and boundaries and new rules for how these things, how news or a movie or a recipe is co-created. And this is really the struggle that's happening. How do you blend an iReport with pure journalism, right? How do you put those two together? And it's going to require, and does require ultimately, a restructuring of the business itself.
Perhaps the only people who really made the effort to understand what the incredible growth in Twitter conversations during the elections meant was Bluefin Labs, who asked the journalist and author Bill Powers to help them make sense of it all.
Bluefin had wanted to do something related to the election, maybe business-wise, like maybe do some analysis for one party or the other. They had all kinds of possibilities floating. Work with a TV network, which was already actually happening with one of them. And we just had a bunch of conversations after that, and it led to the idea of how about a data-driven blog that would track the social TV aspect of the election, which seemed to us to be the frontier of politics, you know, maybe even of democracy generally. I mean, it seems like this is where we're having the conversation more and more in that space. And I was fascinated by Deb's concept and Bluefin's concept that it's in the place where television and social meets that the action is, in a way, because you've got mass events that people are basically watching simultaneously together and commenting on together, and therefore that's this wonderful opportunity to take the conversation about politics and ground it in something. You know, here's an event, 90-minute debate. Everybody basically watched it together, you know, accounting for some DVR and so forth, but people like to watch those events live pretty much. Bluefin had the technology to be able to go in there and make sense of what was said and really identify themes, look at key moments, and not just talk about how many people spoke at that peak moment in the social activity, but why did they speak? You know, why did they care when Romney offered a $10,000 bet to Governor Perry? You know, why was that a moment that made people start tweeting like crazy? Well, you can go into the language and you can see, and you can also see who are the people making those comments. In that case, it turned out to be, in large part, people from economically sensitive groups, people who use public transportation, parents, grandparents. Very interesting, and in many ways, it was sort of a harbinger of things to come for Mitt Romney. You know, it turned out he had this sensitive point on economics and class, and way back, that was way back in the GOP debates, Bluefin was able to pick that up.
This is it, a crucial moment for the presidential candidates and for the American people.
We are counting down to the first results on this election night in America.
Surprisingly, on election night, CNN ignored Twitter on air, while Twitter was the cause for a spike in the Fox News channel's viewership.
You guys may have heard of a guy named Karl Rove. You know him? Was that laughter? Okay, whatever. He's one of our Fox News contributors. He's a political analyst. And Tuesday night, he was not happy with us on Fox. He said, how could you call Ohio early? How could you call this entire election early? And really got things going. And people were going to television sets to turn it on because they were finding out about this fisticuff argument that he was having with our news anchors, Brett and Megan, on set about how could you call it early? And then Megan gets up with the microphone and she runs over to the Fox News election desk, which is fancy for the people who crunch the numbers and don't wear makeup. So they're usually behind a curtain. So she runs over there and pulls back the curtain and everybody goes, ah! No, they're not that bad without makeup. But anyway, the point of this is Karl ignited a reason for people to watch who weren't already tuned in. By the way, this was not the most watched election coverage in history. So you might, as a television broadcaster, want more people to turn on the TV, but it's got to be organic, and I think that's what social TV gives us. Normally, when you're broadcasting and somebody disagrees with you, it's just the 2 or 3 of you on set and deal with it. But when you have 343,000 tweets per minute, and a lot of these people are now tweeting about what they're seeing, it causes you to press in on your journalism.
Although Fox News drew the most viewers, CNN claimed they did.
You know, the viewers who made CNN the most watched network on election night.
We thank you all.
People clicking on Real Clear Politics.
CNN, you're right. They claimed that they had the highest viewership. Fox had the highest number of people of all ages and demographics. But interestingly, because Fox is a very pronounced politically conservative network, as soon as Obama's victory was announced by Fox, the viewership dropped by over 50% at Fox, by Fox's own admission. CNN does not have such a political bias. They kept their audience, and MSNBC got a nice lift because they were much more on the liberal side with Obama, and they were having a victory fest, and their audience went up slightly. They picked up some of the audience that Fox lost, but overall, all of those three networks that covered the election results, if you combine their entire audiences, they did not equal what 20 years ago one network like CBS or ABC or NBC could achieve on the same event.
In 2012, a third of all the conversations on Twitter was TV related, begging the question whether Twitter is in fact a rival to Nielsen's TV ratings.
Nielsen is and will continue to be the authority and the report card that broadcasters wake up to every morning that measures the success on whether or not a certain episode of their TV show made the grade, so to speak. But what we're finding as we talk to television networks and we see this behavior of the Twitter back channel is that Nielsen is not the only source anymore upon which to get feedback.
Nielsen declined to be interviewed, but perhaps as their acknowledgement of the impact that social media has on TV, the company acquired a startup company called Social Guide in November 2012.
Nielsen made that move because they felt as though there is value that networks and TV viewers and media planners and buyers are getting from looking at the volume of tweets and social engagement about a TV show.
A month after the acquisition, Nielsen announced a new partnership with Twitter.
USA Today reports Nielsen and Twitter are teaming up to provide social TV ratings starting next fall. It will measure the social interaction of its users around certain television shows.
The partnership with Nielsen that was just established really is taking what people already know, that Twitter is where people are coming to talk about TV. People have their mobile phones, they've got their computers out, they're talking about, what they're watching as they're watching it.
And in February, Twitter made a surprise acquisition.
Twitter has made a big buy. It purchased Bluefin Labs earlier this week in what's believed to be its largest acquisition to date. Now, Bluefin is a social TV analytics company. Now, this tie-up with Bluefin, it comes after Twitter hired a head of TV last year. And competitors like Nielsen better watch out.
You can't sell something if you can't measure something. And I think, while audience behavior has, swelled in some of these new platforms, I think, a common set of metrics around them has been slower to develop than many, including myself, would have liked. But that's the history of media. With every new innovation, it takes time for the media or community to kind of coalesce into one standard metric.
In the last several years, TV networks, they made a huge investment in their online digital presence because consumers demand it, viewers demand it. Viewers want to watch TV on TV when they want to, but sometimes they want to watch it on the tablet. Sometimes they want to watch it online. Sometimes they want to stream it on demand. So TV networks have been making this huge investment for the betterment of consumers. But what we've been hearing and seeing from the TV networks is that they've made this investment, but they're not able to capture the full value of all these things that they're doing for consumers, like social engagement that consumers have with their shows and their networks. Because there hasn't been any measurement around this stuff until now.
It's not like it's going to change the way TV is necessarily sold, but it could potentially change the way viewership increases and audiences get redefined.
We believe that America's prosperity must rest upon the broad shoulders of a rising middle class.
President Obama's second inauguration would be the last opportunity in this election cycle for the three cable news channels to battle it out for audiences.
Welcome back to our special coverage of the inauguration. We have partnered with Twitter again to track what America is saying about this inauguration.
I really am almost certain that 4 years from now, you're going to see a lot more analysis of this kind just because it's so valuable. I mean, the difference between this and just citing yesterday's poll, it's not that one is better than the other. They're both valuable, but this is the new one. This is where the growth is. And journalists always want to be out on the edge of, technology and democracy.
But the battle over TV viewership seems to have shifted. Viewers seem to care what the day's Nielsen ratings said, because by now there were far too many other metrics.
I'm kind of a student of technological revolutions. My book was partly about that. And this one has happened so much more quickly than any other revolution that just on a human level, it's been really hard to keep up. I've interviewed a lot of people both for my book, and then I met a lot of people after my book that was more about technological change generally and its impact on people's lives. And the people who were the most stressed out about it and who would talk to me about how hard it is to do their work now were all journalists. They weren't business people, they weren't doctors, they weren't lawyers, they were journalists because they said, I now spend all my day surrounded by incoming. Things I have to make sense of that are happening in real time.
Just like bacon makes any dish taste better, Twitter makes the debates better. The sarcastic commentary, the historical perspective, the creative hashtag, the grenade throwers. In 140 characters or less, you got a shot to change the world. A little. I love Twitter, and I'm not alone.
During the past year's coverage of the election, America's three cable news channels took note of social TV, how it's changing their business models and their journalism.
They feel so much in the deluge of it that they haven't been able to really see the value of it completely. Some have. There are definitely exceptions to this. There are people who really get it and really get the social TV aspect. But for most people, either they were in a generation that didn't know how to pay attention to it, kind of my age and older, and many of those people haven't bothered to pay attention to it, or they are just so caught up in trying to make it in a declining business that it's been hard to factor it in.
In March 2013, the Pew Research Center released the 10th edition of their annual report on the state of American journalism. According to the research, cable news viewership has reached a ceiling, and cable subscription may have peaked in 2011. Despite 2012 being an election year, the slight viewership growth all three cable news channels experienced paled in comparison to the growth seen during the previous election. But the channels still told viewers audiences grew.
More people watched that debate on Fox News than any other network, including the broadcast networks.
It turned out that more people watched the Democratic National Convention here on MSNBC this year than anywhere else on cable.
Out of all three channels, CNN had the worst year. For the second time in 3 years, the channel's cash flow decreased and total revenues were flat. Despite a new boss, CNN saw a 5% drop in viewership year on year in his first month at the helm.
I certainly hope so. Yeah, look, there's a lot of passionate people there, and I think we've always done well when things are happening, and it's in the slower times that we've run into problems, and I hope we figure it all out.
I hope so too, Anderson. My attempts at interviewing various individuals at CNN, including Anderson Cooper, were unsuccessful, perhaps because of the worst year CNN has ever experienced. But let's hope CNN figure out how to survive. Not only to keep Ted Turner's dream alive, as he continues to watch CNN.
You watch TV these days specifically?
I watch a little CNN.
Do you?
Yeah, well, I mean, what am I supposed to do?
Ted Turner, I know, gets apoplectic when he looks at CNN.
But also for the multitude of 24-hour news channels across the world that modeled their businesses after the CNN recipe. The cable industry worries about young consumers who they call cord-nevers. Consumers whose media consumption has never and will never include a cable package. Because thanks in part to the Fox News channel, MSNBC, but mostly thanks to CNN, they have learned that they can find the news where the people on TV news found it for free. On the internet.
I think news is the most important space for social TV, because news, it's so important to both be accurate, have a lot of sources, and also tell news really quickly. And I think with social TV, all the major cable news stations now are kind of at like, it's fascinating because they're all kind of at day one again. Some of these companies are huge and have been around forever. Not 60 years maybe, but 20 years when the cable industry emerged. And it's day one, not day zero anymore. They're all on these platforms doing cool things. It's day one because they're all tasked with new viewers, not necessarily giving a crap about what their brand is, what channel it's on, let alone know how to find that channel, let alone have cable at all. But they will come across them if they do a good job online.